Shalom YouTube. Hey guys, it's Fletch. Welcome back to OTH. So today, as you might have guessed from the title, we're going to be talking about the Pinterest mindset. And what do I mean by Pinterest mindset? Pinterest is full of a lot of quote-unquote good ideas. The problem is that many of the quote-unquote good ideas on Pinterest are not well thought out. They're not presented by people that actually know what they're talking about. They're not knowledgeable in the idea that they are presenting, and the long-term consequences of doing some of the things that they tell you about simply are not in your best interest, and you actually end up in worse condition than what you were before. So here is this potter here, and you can see where the paint's starting to come off of there. That's the exact same thing. That was painted with spray paint, and the directions were followed exactly as they were on Pinterest, and it was like, oh yeah, do it, it looks so great, it looks so nice. Well, this is less than a year later, and look how crap that already looks like. It would have been better to just leave it black, right? Because it wouldn't look like that. Because here's the other one that was painted at the same time. And these little spots, like right here and right here, that's all the paint that's left on there now, and that thing looks completely like crap less than a year later. And that's the problem. And there are also many things like that in our society, because we only think for the here and now. We don't want to do the research. We don't want to make sure that our actions are the right thing in the long run, because we care more about our feelings than what we do about what's actually the best for us at times. And you know, many times in the society that we now have, we are trained and we are taught to think that way, that feelings are important. So because it makes me feel good today to paint this planter improperly, following the directions the way that they're given, that it's a good idea. Well, now it looks like crap. And so now it's going to be even more work to try to get the rest of that paint off there, and to, you know, maybe in the future use a proper paint or whatever. But probably more so the problem is that's such a cheap plastic, because that's a disposable, what I'm thinking is here, that is a disposable container that a tree came in at one point in time, right? And so it was repurposed, which is good, right? But again, you because of the type of plastic that that's made out of, that's probably not something that was ever meant to be painted. And many of the ideas like that on Pinterest fall into the same category, and this is what you end up having. And in the long run, it does more harm than it does good. And painting things is definitely one of those things that I would say you definitely, as you go about your life and homesteading and trying to remodel, things like that, make sure that you just stay away from. So here's part of what I'm talking about with the Pinterest groupthink, so to speak. And this just goes to speak what I was talking about earlier, that what looks good today, what makes you feel good today, in the long run may not be a good idea, and it may not be in your best interest. So here we are. You see this right here? The paint is peeling off of there because underneath that is plastic. And so using this regular paint on top of the plastic, that's what happens. And you see how this is cracking up here? And you know, it just goes to see, there's all kinds of signs and symptoms of this that you know, probably they shouldn't have been painted to begin with. You know, they had a natural oak look to them, and you know, from a long ways away it actually looks halfway decent. But the problem is that when you get up real close to it and you look at it, it looks terrible, because you know, the paint is peeling off everywhere in chunks. And no, it's not just because they did a terrible job of painting, it's because it was a terrible idea to begin with. You can't put you know, a regular oil-based paint on top of a plastic, and that's what these cabinets were. You know, a lot of the new cabinets now that are coming out, especially the very cheap ones that like come into manufactured homes and a lot of your newer track homes, things like that, is that the doors on them are a natural frame is probably a better way to put it. Like this has a natural wood on it, and so if you prep that and you painted it, the paint would stick to it well. But this part right here, this is not. The surface of this is a veneer, and the top of the veneer is like a plastic sheet that has printed on it grain. And so, you know, we're still trying to figure out, you know, we didn't do this in the home was this way when we bought it. And so we are still trying to figure out what's the best way to dig out of this hole, so to speak. And so something to keep in mind, because seldom ever do they explain to you the proper way to actually paint it, so that a year or two later it ends up looking 10 times worse than what it did before you painted it, because you wanted the emotional high, temporary emotional high of painting it and making it feeling good because it was something different than what you had. And therein lies the rub again, is because many times okay, so here's the problem. Many times sales and marketing people know this, they understand it, and so what they're doing is creating need, right? Making you unsatisfied with what you currently have to make you think that you need to do something differently, right? And yes, Pinterest, quote unquote, isn't selling you anything. However, they're selling advertising. And so when they get traffic to their site, then they are making money off of you going there to get ideas. So before you make commitments that could end up being long-term, you know, bad ideas, like check out this board, right? These bricks, paint's already coming off, right? Different things like that. Yes, they look good the first year and it makes you feel good. You get an emotional high from doing it. But the long-term problems that you have from doing that definitely are not worth it. Hope you're having a great day, folks. Shalom.